Hi, Lou here, and I'm going to talk about surprise in games, especially tabletop games. I'm going to quote Napoleon I. There are but two powers in the world, the sword and the mind. In the long run, the sword is always beaten by the mind. Sometimes mind is translated as spirit. So surprise is a way for the mind to overcome the sword. How do you achieve surprise? Surprise is unexpected. It often depends on the enemy's ignorance. Militarily, it depends on concealment, often, whether of unit location or unit strength or intention. Be somewhere they don't think you are. Have a capability they don't know. Use rapid movement. There's surprise by misdirection. You disguise your intentions. You appear to be interested in what you're not. Much of Sun Tzu's famous book on war is about surprise by misdirection. So, a war game design and a game in general design must provide opportunities for the enemy to be ignorant in order to have surprise. That usually means hidden information. Now, some people, when they play a game, they don't want to be surprised. They like not having hidden information. They like not having random elements. And that's okay. What they really like, I think, in many cases, is puzzles, because a game with hidden information is a puzzle. There's an always correct solution. Hidden information is relatively easy to do on computers and in card games because hidden information is natural to those formats. It's not so easy in board games. And you can look at how many ancient and medieval board games are perfect information games. Most of them, in fact, chess, checkers, Go, and so forth, tic-tac-toe even. What is often implemented in war games is what's called the fog of war. You can't see beyond your own line of sight, which can be blocked also by smoke or weather and so forth. Where is the enemy? That's a really important question. Sometimes, where are your own units when they're out of sight? Fog of war is common in video games, again, where it's the natural way things work. If you're writing a computer program, you have to tell the program to display stuff on the screen, otherwise it's not going to. And I've seen examples, for example, Shenandoah Games avoided fog of war entirely when they converted a tabletop war game to a video game, because they wanted the video game to work just like the tabletop version. And again, tabletop is where it's relatively difficult to implement fog of war. So what are some fog of war methods? Well, we have block games where there's uncertain identity and strength. You see the block of your enemy or the blocks, but you don't know what is on the other side of that block that they're seeing. There are activations and action points. There's randomness. There's chit draws. There's upside down units. Team play, especially with miniatures, and especially with written orders. You can end up having a lot of confusion. Computer intervention, of course, can implement that confusion. But you don't want to overdo this uncertainty, or the game becomes a mess that competitive gamers don't want. For solo games, it's okay. After all, that's what real warfare is like, a mess. What about event cards and the computer equivalent, hidden perks and so on? I don't mean card-driven games, I mean cards that are auxiliaries to play. These cards, which may be playable out of turn for further surprise, break or add to the rules temporarily for some purpose. These are ripe for causing surprise, even when a player is already familiar with all the possible cards. I think this is the simplest method of implementing surprise in a tabletop game, because implementing fog of war is rather more difficult. Another method of surprise is combos, combinations of moves that reinforce one another. This is common in many card games such as Magic the Gathering. You play one card, that may allow you to play another, or you have an instant that you can play, or the card you've played may work with one on the table, And there may be further cards that are played in the combo. The result is something that the opponent may not have anticipated, something that may surprise them. And this also works in general in special powers games. But you can have surprise even in a perfect information game like chess. This is psychological surprise. Many years ago, Bobby Fischer met Bent Larson in a match to determine who would go on to the next round of the World Championships. Larson attempted to throw Fischer off stride by making unusual moves. That is, he attempted to surprise him. He hoped that Fischer wouldn't know the correct analysis of the unusual position. But Fischer's knowledge of the game was unmatched, and knowing how to counter Larson's ploys, he won the match 6-0. Larson's moves were probably not the best possible, but if Fischer had not previously determined what would be the best line of play to follow in each case, he might have lost on occasion. Intentions are important. With two sides, which includes a solo or a co-op, you can try to use game theory minimaxing to account for enemy intentions. You assume the enemy will play perfectly. That maximizes your minimum gain. If they don't play perfectly, you gain more, according to game theory. However, in a 3 or more sided conflict, nothing that could be calculated can fully take account of enemy intentions. You have to rely on yomi, which is to the reading of the enemy's mind, more or less, because there's no way you can calculate what's going to happen. So another way to add surprise to a game is to make it for more than two sides. But even in a two-sided team game, surprise can come inadvertently when someone on your own side does something you didn't expect. Now I'm going to quote extensively from Wikipedia about surprise. When the rules of reality generating events of daily life separate, that is to say, are different from, the rule of thumb expectations, surprise is the outcome. Surprise represents the difference between expectations and reality, the gap between our assumptions and expectations about worldly events and the way that those events actually turn out. Surprises can make people aware of their own ignorance. The acknowledgement of ignorance, in turn, can mean a window to new knowledge. Surprise can be achieved strategically, tactically, or by exploiting new material. The elements of surprise are secrecy, concealment, deception, originality, audacity, and rapidity. So, to conclude, uncertainty can lead to surprise. Without uncertainty, surprise is very hard to achieve. Thanks for listening.